And if there's an organizational layer that can take advantage of all of that and build intangible skill sets or tacit skill sets that are not easily copied by other firms, then you should have and enjoy sustainable competitive advantage. If all you have out there in a business or firm is valuable resources and capabilities, that alone will not allow you to enjoy sustainable competitive advantage. And we can think of many programs that have been designed for entrepreneurs, school leavers. In Jamaica, we have a program called the Young Entrepreneur Program, which is intended to take high school leavers and turn them into entrepreneurs. Now, using the Barney construct or framework, what are they doing that is valuable, rare, inimitable, and is supported by a strong organization? That program failed because school leavers may have they may have services or products that can be traded, but to get to a sustainable competitive advantage, you need more than that. Valuable resources and rare resources only give you temporary competitive advantage until somebody can substitute those rare resources. The resources that are rare, valuable, inimitable, and supported by a organizational context, culture, and processes that can exploit these resources and capabilities, especially where they become tacitly embedded in your firm, will give you sustained competitive advantage. Ubiquitous resources and capabilities, such as IT, will not give you sustained competitive advantage. However, IT-enabled processes, IT-enabled applications, IT-enabled systems that are unique, rare, have stronger value added, can put you on the road to sustainable competitive advantage. And so the widespread deployment of GIS by itself does not allow a firm to enjoy competitive advantage until they start to layer that with value add that is rare. I'm going to single out, for instance, 3GIS, who takes Esri's generic framework and builds specific skill sets on top of that in order to make them enjoy competitive advantages. Knowledge resources, therefore, are at the heart of what underpins sustainable competitive advantage. And I have a little flow chart that more or less reinforces what I just said, that if the resource is valuable, you can get, if you have resources that are valuable only, you can only get what is known as comparative parity. If you have resources that are valuable and rare, you can enjoy temporary competitive advantage. And if you have resources that are carrying all the VRIO constructs, then you can enjoy sustained competitive advantage. I say that to say that the traditional economic model that we have been learning in Economics 101 is dead. Economics 101 taught us that land, labor, capital are the key for businesses to succeed. That model is dead for the Caribbean. We have no specific land advantages, except for those mineral-rich assets and inventories that we may have for a time. I speak to oil, I speak to bauxite in Jamaica. We have no specific capital advantages. The interest rate in Japan is, I think, minus 10% now, or minus 1%. In Jamaica, it's 20%. So we have no specific capital advantage. The cost of money is no cheaper in the Caribbean than anywhere else. And we have no specific low-cost labor advantages either. The Chinese have taken care of that market. They have locked it. So how are we going to compete in the world? It has to be on the real estate that is here. Because in here we have better real estate than land. In here we have better capital, the human capital, than low-cost labor. And in here we have a better capital. We have a better value proposition than low-cost labor. So to compete in the Caribbean, I'm positing we need to be ramping up on our knowledge capabilities. And the bad news, however, is that countries, companies, individuals have been competing on knowledge for the last 20 years. So it's not a new game, actually. It's a game that is out there, raging, that we just have to join into. When we look at some recent World Bank studies on the growth of the knowledge economy, which again has been out there for at least 2 decades, we see the countries, and it might be hard to see, the countries that are doing extremely well: Norway, US, Switzerland, Denmark. The Scandinavian countries are particularly great at it. Jamaica is somewhere in the middle. I think Trinidad and Barbados should be somewhere here. And down here we have countries that are an amalgam of failed states or resource states that are not managing their resources properly, and so on. But this is where we need to ramp up. And while we are ramping up, others are ramping further. Now, what is the picture in the Caribbean? The World Economic Forum has broken out the classification of economies into 3 broad categories. What they call resource-based economies, where countries compete based on their raw factor endowment of natural resources that they got from God way back when. But the production is mainly based on unskilled labor in support of those natural resources. Then in the middle, we have countries that have moved beyond that and are competing on the basis of efficiencies brought to bear, primarily because wage rates are rising, and therefore to compensate you have to be more efficient. And they're called, those economies, efficiency-based economies. And finally, the innovation economies, the ones that are competing on sophisticated production processes that are underpinned by innovation, knowledge, innovation. In the Caribbean, if we look at the last report, the 2010 to 2011 report, Honduras and Nicaragua are classified as stage 1 countries. Jamaica and Guyana are classified as transition countries, moving from stage 1 to stage 2. Stage 3 is occupied by DOMREP, by Panama, and by Costa Rica. Transition countries moving from efficiency-based to innovation economies include Trinidad and Barbados. But there's nobody in the Caribbean that is here. Remember, this is where we have to ramp up. And how we're going to ramp up is not through low-cost labor, unskilled labor, nor natural resources, but through innovation and knowledge. Now, how important are markets to supporting that whole idea of human capabilities? Is human capabilities a socialist construct that is saying get away with markets? In truth and in fact, it is not. As markets are vital, and they are the best systems known to us, to man, to allocate efficiently. So markets are going to be key to what we do. Now, there's a global value chain that constantly swirls around us 24/7, 365. And whether we pay attention to it or not, it is there. And so the charge in the Caribbean is, how do we harvest the highest value from that value chain? We can seek to go low cost if we wish, and harvest high numbers of persons participating in low cost activity. But that is not reaping the strongest benefits of the value chain, of the global value chain. To get the strongest benefits from the global value chain, you have to be operating in this area. The strongest earners from the global value chain are in this side of the world. So the persistent drive to move up the value chain is a pressing urgency of now, and can only come from Caribbean businesses. Because remember, we said the net retention is strongest with Caribbean businesses, not with persons coming from outside to reap from Caribbean economies. Now, how do we know what is happening with the value chain? It's through things like URISA, it's through our professional networks, it is through our diaspora.